Imagine if I told you that the deadliest war in human history, a war that killed over 70 million people, didn't start because of one evil person. It started because the smartest, most powerful leaders in the world all made the exact same mistake, over and over again, for 20 years straight. It's November 11th, 1918. Picture this. After 4 long, terrible years of fighting, World War I finally ends. Soldiers all across Europe are celebrating. They're throwing their helmets in the air, hugging each other, crying tears of joy. They're going home. The war to end all wars is finally over. In Paris, the most important people in the world gather around a huge wooden table. There's President Woodrow Wilson from America, wearing his fancy suit and round glasses. There are the leaders of Britain and France, tired and serious looking, and they're all thinking the same thing. We're going to make sure this never happens again. They have a plan, a brilliant plan. Instead of countries fighting wars, they'll talk things out at something called the League of Nations. It's like a big club where countries promise to solve their problems with words, not weapons. Everyone's excited. They even create brand new countries, places like Poland and Czechoslovakia that had been swallowed up by empires for hundreds of years. But here's the thing they didn't realize. They were planting seeds, tiny, invisible seeds that would grow into monsters. And the worst part? They had 20 full years to stop what was coming, 20 years to see the warning signs, 20 years to fix their mistake. But they didn't. Because every single time something went wrong, they all made the exact same choice. Let me show you how it happened.
Now, to understand this story, you need to meet the people who made these mistakes. These aren't villains, not yet anyway. They're just regular people trying to keep their country safe. First, there's Stanley Baldwin, the Prime Minister of Britain. Imagine your grandpa, but he runs a whole country. He's tired. He's seen too many young men die in World War I. He lost friends, neighbors, maybe even family. All he wants is peace and quiet. His people want the same thing. They're exhausted from war. Then there's the leaders of France, men like Edouard Daladier. France lost more soldiers than Britain in World War I. Entire villages have no young men left. So France builds this massive wall called the Maginot Line along their border with Germany. It's filled with underground tunnels, huge guns, and thousands of soldiers. They think, if we just hide behind our wall, we'll be safe. Across the ocean is President Franklin Roosevelt in America. His country is falling apart from something called the Great Depression. A quarter of Americans, that's 1 out of every 4 people, can't find jobs. Families are living in cardboard boxes. Roosevelt's got his hands full just trying to feed his own people. And then there's Germany. Germany got absolutely crushed after World War I, not just in the war, but in the peace treaty they had to sign. Imagine if you got in a fight at school, and not only did you lose the fight, but the principal made you pay for everyone's lunch for the next year, give up your locker, and take the blame for starting the fight, even though it wasn't all your fault. That's what happened to Germany. They had to pay billions of dollars to France and Britain. They lost huge chunks of their country. And worst of all, German people felt humiliated, embarrassed, angry. Enter Adolf Hitler. Now, in 1923, Hitler is nobody, just an angry guy who's good at giving speeches. He tries to take over the government and fails miserably. He goes to jail. Most people think he's done, finished, a joke. But here's what nobody sees coming. In 1929, the entire world's economy crashes. It's called the Great Depression. In Germany, it's even worse than in America. 6 million Germans, 6 million, lose their jobs. Money becomes worthless. People are burning cash just to stay warm because it's cheaper than buying firewood. And when people are scared and desperate, they'll listen to anyone who promises to fix things. Hitler promises to make Germany great again, to give people jobs, to make Germany powerful and respected. And you know what? When he actually takes power in 1933, he does create jobs. He builds highways, 5,000 miles of them. He puts millions of people back to work. Unemployment drops dramatically. The German people love him. They don't see what he's doing in secret yet. Because while Hitler's building highways on the surface, underground, he's building something else. An army. A massive, modern, terrifying army. Tanks, airplanes, submarines, all the things Germany was forbidden to have after World War I. Now here's where the mistake starts happening. In 1935, Hitler reveals he's built an air force, the Luftwaffe. It has 2,500 airplanes. That's more than Britain and France combined. Britain and France's response? They write Hitler a strongly worded letter. That's it, a letter. The mistake? They hoped if they ignored it, it would go away. In 1936, Hitler sends troops into the Rhineland, a part of Germany that was supposed to stay empty of soldiers. It's a direct violation of the treaty. Britain and France's response? Nothing. They talk about it, they discuss it, but they do nothing. The mistake again, they told themselves Hitler was just taking back what was rightfully Germany's anyway. Now at this point, you might be thinking, why didn't they just stop him? Here's the thing. They were terrified of another war. They remembered the trenches, the gas attacks, the millions of dead bodies. They couldn't bear the thought of going through that again. So every time Hitler did something bad, they convinced themselves, maybe this is the last thing he'll do. Maybe if we give him this, he'll finally be satisfied. They had no idea they were feeding a monster that would never, ever be full.
While everyone's making excuses for Hitler, something scary is happening on the other side of the world. Something that should have been a huge warning sign. Let me introduce you to Japan. Japan's got problems. They've got way too many people and not enough food or resources to feed them. So Japanese military leaders look at a map and see their neighbor, China, specifically a region called Manchuria that's full of coal, minerals, and farmland. In 1931, that's only 13 years after World War I ended, Japanese soldiers just take it. They march in and conquer the whole territory. They set up a fake government with a puppet ruler. The brand new League of Nations, remember, that's the organization that was supposed to prevent wars, holds a meeting, they investigate, they write reports, they condemn Japan's actions. And Japan's response? They stand up, walk out of the meeting, and basically say, we don't care what you think. This is the first test of whether the League of Nations actually works, and it fails spectacularly. But wait, it gets worse. In 1935, Italy, led by a dictator named Benito Mussolini, invades a country in Africa called Ethiopia, back then called Abyssinia. Ethiopia's emperor, Haile Selassie, travels all the way to the League of Nations headquarters in Switzerland. Picture this small, dignified man in traditional robes standing before these powerful world leaders, begging them to help his country. The League of Nations does almost nothing. They impose some economic sanctions, basically saying we won't trade certain things with you, but they're so weak they don't matter. The mistake happens again. Nobody wants to actually fight to stop aggression. Now here's where things get really complicated. In 1936, a civil war breaks out in Spain. It's brutal, families literally fighting each other in the streets. On one side are the Republicans, the elected government. On the other side are the nationalists, led by General Franco, who want to overthrow the government. And guess who shows up to help Franco? Hitler sends planes, tanks, and 12,000 soldiers. Mussolini sends 50,000 troops and 700 aircraft. They're using Spain as a testing ground, trying out their new weapons and tactics on real people. The Republicans beg Britain and France for help. Britain and France create a policy called non-intervention. Sounds nice, right? It means we're staying out of it. The mistake again. They hoped if they didn't get involved, the problem would solve itself. But here's the thing that should have terrified everyone. In April 1937, German planes absolutely obliterate a small Spanish town called Guernica. They drop bombs on it for hours. 6,000 civilians, regular people, kids, grandparents, are killed for no military reason, just to see what would happen. This is a preview of what Hitler's planning to do to all of Europe. And Britain and France, they still do nothing. Meanwhile, Hitler's watching all of this. He's taking notes. He's learning the most important lesson. Britain and France will not fight, no matter what. So he makes a plan, a careful, step-by-step plan. Step 1. In 1938, he marches into Austria and just
absorbs it into Germany. Austria speaks German anyway, he argues. Britain and France protest, but take no action. Step 2, he demands a chunk of Czechoslovakia called the Sudetenland because Germans live there. The Czech army is ready to fight. They've got great fortifications and equipment. But then something wild happens. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain flies to meet Hitler, not once, but twice. Hitler promises that if he gets the Sudetenland, he won't ask for anything else. This is my last territorial demand in Europe, he says. Chamberlain believes him. In September 1938, Britain and France forced Czechoslovakia to give up the Sudetenland to avoid war. Chamberlain flies home waving a piece of paper, declaring he's achieved peace in our time. People are cheering in the streets. They think war has been avoided. But here's what they don't know. Hitler's already planning his next move. 6 months later, in March 1939, he invades the rest of Czechoslovakia, the parts that aren't even German. And finally, Britain and France realize what's happening. They've been making the same mistake over and over, giving in to a bully, hoping he'll stop being a bully. But bullies don't stop. They just get bolder. And now, Hitler's got his eyes on Poland.
It's the summer of 1939. Britain and France have finally drawn a line in the sand. They tell Hitler, if you invade Poland, we will declare war. Hitler doesn't care. He's gotten away with everything so far. Why would this be different? But he has one problem: Russia. See, Russia sits right next to Poland. If Hitler invades Poland, Russia might attack him from the east, while Britain and France attack from the west. He'd be trapped, fighting on two fronts, the exact thing that lost Germany World War I. So Hitler does something absolutely insane, something that shocks the entire world. On August 23, 1939, Hitler and Joseph Stalin, the leader of Communist Russia, announced they've signed a peace treaty. Remember, these two are supposed to be sworn enemies. Hitler hates communism. Stalin hates fascism. They've spent years saying they want to destroy each other. But they make a deal, a secret deal. The deal says, you take half of Poland, I'll take half of Poland. Then you can have the small countries next to you, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and I won't bother you. It's like watching two sharks agree to share the fish in the ocean. Now at this point, Poland is doomed. Absolutely doomed. They've got a decent army, sure, but they're about to be attacked from both sides by two of the most powerful militaries in the world. The Polish people don't know this yet. It's late August. Kids are getting ready to go back to school, farmers are harvesting crops, families are having dinner together. They have no idea that in 1 week, their entire world is about to explode. August 31st, 1939, evening. All along Poland's border with Germany, more than 1 million German soldiers are hiding in forests, in ditches, behind hills. They've got 2,500 tanks. They've got thousands of artillery guns. They've got 1,900 aircraft. The German soldiers are young. Many of them are just 18 or 19 years old. They're nervous, excited, scared. They've been told Poland attacked Germany first, which is a lie, but they believe it. They think they're defending their country. At exactly 4:45 a.m. on September 1st, 1939, the order comes down. Fire. Thousands of German artillery guns open up simultaneously. The sound is like continuous thunder. Shells scream through the darkness and slam into Polish positions. Polish soldiers who are sleeping are blown apart before they even wake up. At the same moment, German tanks come roaring out of the forests. They're moving fast, way faster than anyone expected. This isn't like World War I where armies moved slowly. This is something new, something that Germans called blitzkrieg, lightning war. Dive bombers, these screaming German aircraft called Stukas, come shrieking out of the sky. They've got sirens attached to them that make this horrible wailing noise specifically designed to terrify people. And it works. Polish soldiers hear this sound and freeze in terror. The Polish army fights back bravely, incredibly bravely. There are stories of Polish cavalry, soldiers on horses, charging German tanks with swords and lances. Can you imagine? Horses versus tanks? It's hopeless, but they do it anyway because they're trying to protect their country. For the first few days, it seems like maybe Poland can hold out long enough for Britain and France to help. Britain and France do declare war on September 3rd, just like they promised. But here's the thing. They don't actually do anything. They don't attack Germany. They don't send troops to help Poland. They just wait. They sit behind their fortifications and hope for the best. The mistake one final time. Even when they declare war, they're still too afraid to actually fight. And then, on September 17th, the nightmare gets worse. Soviet Russia invades Poland from the east. Now Poland's getting crushed from both sides. Their army is scattered. Their cities are being bombed.
Refugees are flooding the roads, millions of people carrying whatever they can, running for their lives. Warsaw, Poland's capital, holds out for nearly a month. The people there refuse to surrender. They fight in the streets, in buildings, house by house. But eventually, they run out of ammunition, food, hope. On September 27, 1939, less than a month after the invasion started, Warsaw surrenders. Poland ceases to exist as a country. It's divided between Germany and Russia, just like they planned. And World War II, the war that will kill over 70 million people, has officially begun. All because of one mistake, repeated over and over again.
In just 36 days, Poland is completely conquered. Over 60,000 Polish soldiers are killed. 130,000 are wounded. The rest, hundreds of thousands of them, are captured and sent to prison camps. Many will never come home. But the real horror is just beginning. See, when Germany and Russia divide up Poland, they don't just take the land. They try to erase Poland's entire identity. The Germans close all the schools and universities. They ban Polish language and culture. They start rounding up teachers, priests, lawyers, doctors, anyone who's educated, and either execute them or send them to concentration camps. The Russians do the same thing on their side. They arrest over 1 million Polish people and deport them to frozen work camps in Siberia. Many die from the cold and starvation. One Polish soldier who survives the initial invasion is a young man named Witold Pilecki. He'll later sneak into Auschwitz concentration camp on purpose to document what's happening there. But that's a story for another time. Now, remember Britain and France, the ones who promised to help Poland? For the next 8 months, they literally just sit there. Historians call it the phony war, because even though Britain and France are technically at war with Germany, nobody's actually fighting. They're all just waiting. The British think maybe Hitler will be satisfied now that he has Poland. Maybe he'll stop. They're still making the same mistake. On May 10th, 1940, Hitler proves them wrong. Spectacularly wrong. Germany invades France, but they don't attack the Maginot Line, that giant wall France spent billions building. They go around it, through a forest everyone thought was impossible to cross with tanks. In just 6 weeks, France surrenders. France, one of the most powerful countries in the world, falls faster than Poland did. Britain barely escapes. They evacuate 340,000 soldiers from the beaches of Dunkirk in a desperate rescue operation. By the summer of 1940, Hitler controls most of Europe. And it's all happened because of that one repeated mistake, hoping that giving in to a bully would make them stop. The war goes on for 5 more years. Hitler invades the Soviet Union in 1941, betraying Stalin just like he betrayed everyone else. Russia loses over 20 million people before they finally push Germany back. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor in December 1941, dragging America into the war. President Roosevelt, who wanted to stay out of it, has no choice but to fight now. By the time it's all over in 1945, over 70 million people are dead. That's more than the entire population of France. 6 million Jews are murdered in the Holocaust. Entire cities are erased from existence. 2 atomic bombs are dropped on Japan. And it all could have been prevented. If, in 1935, when Hitler revealed his illegal air force, Britain and France had said no and meant it. If, in 1936, when Hitler sent troops into the Rhineland, they had pushed back. If, in 1938, when Hitler demanded Austria and Czechoslovakia, they had drawn a line. If they had learned the lesson from Japan invading Manchuria, or Italy invading Ethiopia, or the Spanish Civil War. But they didn't, because they were so desperate to avoid another war that they made the same mistake over and over. They hoped that giving a bully what he wanted would make him stop. Here's what exists today because of this story. The United Nations was created to replace the failed League of Nations. It has actual power to intervene now, including military force. We have a saying, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. NATO was formed so that if one country gets attacked, all the allied countries have to respond immediately. No more waiting around hoping things get better. And we have memorials all over the world. In Poland, there's a monument that simply says, "We remember September 1939. Here's the final thing I want you to remember. Standing up to bullies is hard. It's scary. It might even lead to conflict. But history teaches us that giving in to bullies, whether they're in a schoolyard or running countries, doesn't make them stop. It makes them bolder. The leaders of the 1930s learned this lesson too late. 70 million people paid the price. The question is, will we remember?